Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to our next interview. I'm excited today because we're going to be talking about cookies. And oh, if you know me well, you know I love cookies. But I also love talking about entrepreneurial journeys. I love talking about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And for many of us at times, it's inspired by something a little bit crazy. Sometimes it's a little bit scary. And in this case, we're going to be talking about that inspiration that often comes from a health challenge. So I'm excited about our guest today, hopefully sharing the details of this journey, not just kind of how our guest has started not only the business that he's currently managing, but the key is he's managed more than one business. So we're going to talk about those pivots, those changes. We're going to talk about what it's like to be in an industry that has been dominated by non-vegan cookies and why we need to make sure we are dominating it with vegan cookies. So, before we dive into the background, before we dive into all the details, I just want to say hello to our guest, Ray. It is wonderful to have you here with us today.
Thank you for having me, Stephanie. I really appreciate it. I feel so special being picked by you guys. I mean, wow.
Oh, I'm excited too. This is so much
So happy.
fun
Yeah,
because I've known your other businesses, and like I said,
yeah.
I'm definitely a cookie monster. So this is exciting for me to talk about. So before we go back in time, before we go back into everything that made you who you are and the businesses who you are, let's just introduce people to your business. Let's talk
Okay.
about just giving them a little, just quick glimpse into Sunflower Baking Company, what it is, what you do, and then we'll jump in our time machine.
Okay. Well, I've been in the cookie business for about 29, almost actually 30 years this year. Sunflower Baking Company was conceived about 3 years after my first bakery. And you may have heard of my first bakery, Alternative Baking Company. That was my first crazy creation. And that was 1994. And that's when I just became a different person, actually, just by changing my diet. It completely changed me as a person, as a human, the thinking, the thought process, the whole entire world changed for me very reluctantly, considering how I grew up. So, and I grew up in a very heavy Mexican chorizo, carnitas kind of thing. And it was very tough for, it's almost like your family almost rejects you for being even vegetarian. So I actually resisted being vegetarian. I actually felt that being vegetarian, and I started out vegetarian, was almost like a sin to how I grew up.
Mhm.
It just was not. It was looked down upon, believe it or not. But I just said, you know what, I'm going to do this anyway. So I started my first alternative baking company business. Who I do not own it now anymore. I separated myself from them 3 years into the business after almost doing about 1 million in sales, only to start Sunflower Baking Company, which is a more impactful and powerful company uh, who does a greater good for everyone and everything. I immediately started giving cookies away to and donating them like crazy to charity events just to get the marketing aspect of vegan. But let me go back a minute. And the interesting thing is, when I first started the Alternative Baking Company, I got so much slack for people not wanting me to put the word vegan on my package. I have so many people say that's going to kill your sales. That's going to kill your sales. I'm like, I don't care. I was an angry vegan at the time. In
Okay.
fact, when I became vegan, I became vegan for health. First of all, I had no comprehension of the destruction of what meat was doing to this world. So I was when I became vegan. I remember the turning point. Literally sold everything that I owned that was leather. Every leather
Wow.
shoe, every leather jacket. I think the next day, I put all my leather stuff out for sale on a yard sale, just like that crazy scene in Close Encounters where that guy builds a thing in his living room, the Devil's Tower. So I just put all my stuff out. Anything that was leather, I threw away. I was like, I'm done with animal products. I don't want to have any more animal products. I'm done. And so,
Okay.
so I became immediately an angry vegan, and I wanted to tell everybody. I wanted to tell me, but the one thing was, to. I wanted a cookie. That was part of the reason, part of the problem that I wanted to solve was I said, oh my gosh, I hadn't had a cookie. That was when I was age 24. So I had had a cookie since I was 16, because there's so many hidden eggs and hidden
Yes.
byproducts of animal products and cakes and it was terrible. So I mean, I was just like, I just loved cookies, and like you, I'm pretty much a cookie monster myself. But for the most part, I used to grow up, eating those chubs of cookies, the Pillsbury chubs. I used to be obsessed over those. So I kind of grew up until I started to had to stop eating them. That was the end of me. And so when I was
Mm.
24, I got a job at Sacramento Natural Foods Co-op, and I met a baker there who helped me get started on understanding how to bake vegan, which I was still pretty resistant to being vegetarian actually. So I first started being vegetarian. I lost 95 pounds, 65 pounds the first 4 months, just fell off. And then I lost
Wow.
another 30 pounds when I became vegan, realizing the power of vegan. So, and I thought to myself, you know what? If it's this powerful and it can do that much and that good, and someone without even, and I hate exercise. I exercise now a little bit, but I am not an exercise crazy guy. I decided, you know what? Oddly enough, the very first thing I decided to come up with was a vegan cookie. I mean, I found this vegan cookie in the store, and I thought to myself, everybody's got to see this vegan. I mean, it was amazing. A cookie with no eggs. How did that
And
happen?
that tasted
You know what I
good.
mean?
That's the key, right?
They were fantastic. They were soft. I'm a soft cookie kind of guy. I mean, I make everything now soft and hard and everything, but so I'm a huge, like a Toll House cookie kind of guy. So
Hmm.
I got a job at the co-op, and then the person started helping me and teaching me how to make cookies with no eggs, which I didn't even think was possible. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. The war had just ended with the Iraq. I really sold all my equipment to get out of construction. I'd had a year off. I'd saved a lot of money, and then I actually started my first vegan cookie company with less than $5,000.
Wow.
I didn't. I had, but the interesting part about it is, uh, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what I was going to do, how I was going to get this done. But so the thing that comes, I think, with people like myself is the passion starts to take over, where it
Yeah.
actually it just starts to you start to kind of not lose your mind, but go in a completely different direction than you ever thought you would.
Hmm.
You it just took over. I didn't care of the failure. I didn't care of the success. I just wanted to get it done. I just said the world has got to have these cookies. And that's what I was looking to do. You know what I mean? I didn't care
Yeah,
if it was a failure, you know?
I love that. I love that. I want to jump in for 1 minute. And I'm going to
Sure.
jump back to a couple of things you said. But number one,
Go ahead.
I love what you're saying right now about how the success of it was bigger than the failure. Because I think for a lot of people,
Completely.
when they're running their businesses, they're nervous, they're concerned, they're worried about opinions, and then they're also worried about doing it right. Because everyone
Right.
looks like they're perfect on Instagram and all these other
Oh
platforms.
yeah.
And, when you went through that phase of getting focused and understanding that the success is what mattered, do you have an example of something that you had to push through, like an obstacle you had to kind of find your way around
Oh
that, you know what I mean?
gosh.
If now looking back on it, you're kind of surprised and also grateful
Oh,
for that kind of lesson.
I don't have enough time to go over every single one of them, but I'll tell you one thing that the I think the very first obstacle was trying to, so once you have the product of whatever you decide to put out as vegan, which I didn't really understand vegan to begin with. I didn't want to be labeled vegan. I really wanted nothing to do with the vegan word because it was such a dirty word in 1994, so to speak. But
Mhm.
I think that was probably my biggest obstacle was trying to explain people what I was doing and
Okay.
how much slack I would get for taking this type of risk. Like I'm sure
Mm.
people would much rather have had me go to college and or build something, or because I have a construction background, and I have no problem building things. I have a mechanics background. I'm kind of a jack of all trades kind of guy. So when I got into baking, people thought I was definitely crazy. So not just baking, but vegan baking was even crazier
A
in
little different, yes.
1994.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think my biggest obstacle was trying to overcome and talk people into understanding that, hey, I have this product with no eggs and no butter. I mean, that was oddly enough, it's in 1994. It was still a very odd thing to be
Yeah.
to have a vegan cookie. I look back at it now, and I think the biggest obstacle I would have to say was just trying to convince people that this is a great cookie. It doesn't taste like cardboard, I swear. And then just that's why I was so staunch about giving away as many cookies as I did, because I wanted to just give away cookies to say, hey, look, it doesn't taste that bad. It
Yeah.
tastes good.
Yeah. And I think that's a great convincing campaign. And I also think it's one of those things where it creates a memory for people. When
Oh,
you try
absolutely.
a product or you're thinking about even trying a product, when you get to taste it, you're like, I remember when I thought it was this, but it tasted so good
Right.
that I wanted more. And
Oh,
then I went and bought it. That
yep.
experience is what, like, I think for many of us as entrepreneurs, that's like our dream, no matter what we
Completely.
sell, is that people get a chance to kind of try it and fall in love with it.
Oh, that's definitely it was a hurdle for myself, because every time that I would try to give a cookie away, they would literally say, "Hey, does it taste like cardboard?" I'm like, "No, it doesn't taste like cardboard. It tastes like a cookie." For the first time in your life since the '70s, somebody's invented a cookie that doesn't taste like cardboard. The vegetarian and business does not have a good name. It never did.
Yeah. Yeah.
This also this fallacy of skinny vegan or vegetarians, I completely blew away, because
Yeah.
even though I lost 95 pounds, I was 300 almost 300 295 pounds. I got down to about 175, 185, 175, somewhere around there. And then but the funny thing was, right after I started my first bakery, I probably gained about 40 pounds, and that was all because I
Mm,
was a lot of
tasting.
testing.
Yeah.
It was a lot of testing. I can tell you, Stephanie, you don't know anybody who's eaten more cookies than me. Nobody. Okay.
I believe that. I would
I have,
not challenge you on that one.
don't challenge
For
me.
sure.
But
For
that's why
sure.
I'm sweet too. I like to tell people I'm a little sweet because I have so much sugar in my blood this day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, we've been talking about what it was like in, 1994 when you got started, when you were building. But compare and contrast that to now with you having, your new business now and what the market is like and, building in this day and age, especially since you have those two perspectives.
Uh, it's in contrast. It's there's a lot more competition now. I
Yeah.
think that's I'm not sure if that's for myself. I like to say it's great, yay. You know, uh, I'd love to have been the only vegan cookie. I think that the name that I put out, my first company particularly, which I don't do any business with anymore, um, uh, they have a big market share, and then there's others that have followed suit.
Mhm.
But there isn't a lot of vegan cookie companies, but there are a lot of vegan cookie companies. Not they're not all big, and it's still a tough racket, so to speak. It's almost become like, at one point, I think, like these days, the vegan protein is becoming saturated so much to the point where it's being discontinued. And
Mm,
the interesting part about the vegan cookies, is it has a greater span of market share. It can go in more places, and it can do more things all across the world. And I have stuff all over the world, and I've done stuff with the government. I've been on the airlines, and I was doing about 1 million a year up until 9/11, unfortunately, of mini cookies that were in the first class, and that business got killed by, I mean, I shouldn't use that word, by the 9/11. That was
mm,
horrible for everybody and everything, and all businesses. It was terrible. But for the most part, I think that the obstacles now that I have um, um, aren't taste anymore. I can guarantee you that people are not complaining about the taste. I think it's mainly uh, it's mainly become more availability, I think, so to speak, of a
mm.
great cookie. I think that there are some cookies out there that aren't as good as mine. I'm slightly biased on that, but I think that even today, there's going to be a new generation that comes out with new cookies all the time. There's
Yes.
not a lot of ingredients. There's not a lot of ingredients that you can make a vegan cookie with. I mean, it's going to almost be the same for the most part, but I think that my obstacle is probably, for the most part, competition, not just with other companies, but even with my own company, my former
Mm,
company that I started. And
okay.
to have to compete with myself has been tough.
I can
I'm
imagine.
my worst
But
competition. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's also the tricky part about competition is it also helps establish a market and establish a
Oh,
strong market
yes.
for it. So creates a customer base. So I agree as an entrepreneur, it's like a, it's a good and bad thing because it's
Yeah.
something that you have to work against, but at the same time, it's so exciting also to see that it can be a market that can continue to grow and be a market that people gravitate towards,
Oh,
even if they're
yes.
not like t-shirt wearing vegans, you know?
Right. Oh, no, no, no. I definitely would say that there's even alternative bake company, my first bakery, there's people still don't know who they are. I mean, there's
Mhm.
still a lot of work to do in the vegan mainstream business. I mean, a lot. I'm just in Ralph's. The interesting thing is I have Ralph's. I have one of my lines called Mishi's.
Mhm.
I just visited 140 of the stores personally. And I was actually surprised that a lot of the bakery department people who are mainstream people knew what vegan was. It's come a shock. It's becoming more of a shock to me, in fact, that people are beginning to know what the V word, the vegan word, and it's become more mainstream. Now, the word plant based has made its way into this situation, and but you know what? I see plant based stuff out there still with eggs and butter in there, which still surprises me.
Yeah. I struggle with plant-based because it's not as well
Too,
defined and it can be
for
plant-based
sure.
and not vegan, which makes
It
me a little
happens.
nervous because it's not something you can rely on in a sense.
No, you cannot rely on it. In fact, Rouse has a line that I mean, with all due respect to Routes, I love them to death. They've been fantastic to me, but they do have stuff in there that says plant based. There's several companies, the big companies and corporations, who are getting on the plant based bandwagon,
Yes.
but it's not vegan, And so we as vegans, we have to still look at the labels. I don't want to keep looking at labels, but we have to still look at labels, and
Yeah.
it's just come a conscious thing where oh, I have, no matter what, now plant based can't fool me. I can't be fooled by that plant based. I still have to look at the label, and I have done it before. I'm
Yes.
guilty. I bought some Hungry Man meals or something like that one time, and it said plant based. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna go. I didn't even look at the label. I get home. Oh my gosh, there's
Yeah. They got me.
chicken
That's
stock
how I
or
feel.
something
Yeah.
in there. I mean,
Yeah,
oh
they got
yeah,
me.
that's
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah, yeah. I think that's happened to all of us. So before we kind of go for it, before we go forward, I want to make sure we do take a couple steps back because when we even talking before we started the interview, we talked about how you got on this journey. We talked about kind of that idea from like illness to entrepreneur. Do you want to kind
Yeah.
of share what that journey was like and what that discovery was like? Because I think for a lot of us, that why and those discoveries can help us, through our business, especially someone like yourself who's been a long-term entrepreneur.
Well, we may have to say some dirty words here, but
Uh-oh.
I
All right,
yeah,
everybody,
yeah,
strap in.
yeah.
Get ready.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. As a child, growing up in a regular meat eating world, I had a terrible, and I didn't know, and I thought it was normal to be terribly sick all the time. I was sick, 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 and I had a lot of bad bathroom habits. If I'm not sure if you're
Mm,
cutting out the word diarrhea or anything like it, but I was very sick. Okay, I was very sick,
got it.
and
Okay.
I had pretty much everything under the sun uh, as far as sicknesses go. And then I actually got diagnosed when I was about probably, I can't remember, a little later in my life, with Cushing's and Addison's, and
Mm,
potentially a tumor on my adrenal gland. I was like, how did that
wow.
happen? So, but I
Yeah.
started basically when I was about 14 years old, reading medical books on how the digestive system breaks down food, and then really all the endocrine system and the digestive system and how it all worked. So, because I was thinking, what is going on with me? Why am I sick all the time? And my brother wasn't sick. My brother was perfectly fine. It just happened to be that I was digesting food incorrectly or something. I mean, I later on to find out that I know what the problem is, but basically, I was basically being, what it's kind of like, it's like what do you call it? What do you call those things? I can't remember. Uh, I was catapulted in some ways because I was in
Mhm.
such pain and such misery.
Yeah.
I was,
Hmm.
I could almost tell you I was suicidal. I was so
Oh.
sick and so unhappy and so miserable as a child.
Mm,
I just wanted to
mm,
get off of this earth. But I thought to myself, there's
Mm,
no way, there's got to be a bigger plan. This can't be happening. So I hit the books. My dad bought me a more layman's terms book. I started reading about, I could understand the digestive system, blah, 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 how food broke down. So really, that's when I started to stop eating eggs. And at the age of 16, I completely said, okay, I got to stop eating eggs. So that was my first step in which I did not know I was going to be vegan.
yeah.
I had a girlfriend that was vegetarian, and I was completely like, oh, you're vegetarian? That's weird.
What does that mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so weird. I don't want to be vegetarian. I was a tough Mexican guy. They're not vegetarians. But it ended up, now she laughs at me because of it, because I'm still friends with her. But for the most part, I'm going to go ahead and say the word from my sicknesses catapulted me into making others and wanting to inspire others to look at their diets, to look how
Yeah.
they feel, to try to
Mhm.
try to understand the how the food breaks down in your body, how it digests and what it feels like. Go vegan for a week, go vegan for 2 weeks. Hey, believe me, you're gonna makes a huge difference, because it was that first step, which was obsessively eating oatmeal, I think toast with no
Mhm.
butter, and top ramen was my first, because that's all I could get as a vegan in 1994 that I knew of, because I didn't hang around
Yeah.
those hippie stores, those hippie. I didn't want to be that hippie. I did not want to
But
be
see,
that hippie.
today that's who we are. We love being
I'm
those
a
people, right?
hippie. I become a
We love
hippie.
it. Yes.
Like, oh my
Yes.
gosh,
Yes.
what happened to me? I'm 56 too, so I've been
But
through
I
the
think that's the
70s.
tricky
I didn't,
part
I
with
didn't
a
want to
lot
be
of
the same.
those labels. I think that's the hard part with a lot of those labels, especially
Yeah,
when we were growing up, when we were talking about the 90s and stuff like that, and even
yeah.
the 80s and so forth, there was a lot of labels just kind of put on people that weren't defined.
Ooh,
And I really
by
love
far.
today how sometimes we have reclaimed some of those labels. And I also really appreciate now that people are so much more open-minded. And I think a lot of that is
By far.
because people have been on similar even health journeys of yourself, where they're starting to realize that certain foods don't agree with them. They're starting to realize that, maybe we have to make a change. And even in some of your earlier statements, and sometimes you make a change to your cuisine, it feels a little bit like you're betraying your culture or where you came
Oh,
from or your
oh,
background. And all of those things can be
yes.
tricky. But I think it's such a kind of beautiful world that we're in today, because there's much more acceptance. There's much more openness for that. And we can all be all different types of vegans. We can be vegans of
Oh,
different sizes and vegans of
blows my mind.
different backgrounds and
It-
everything. And I
since
think that's
since
what's
I
beautiful.
yeah, since I became vegan, I'm telling you, I've met every type of person under the sun, every shape and size, and I was feeling very alone. I was shunned from my family, believe it or not. I have a huge family on both sides, and they
Mm,
were like, "You're vegan? Oh, that's weird. That's gross. I'm not going to eat vegan." I'm people are teasing me about this whole vegan thing. The label of being vegan or vegetarian was not a good thing at the time, for sure. But now you're right; it's completely so much better than it used to be by far.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm so grateful for these times and for these moments. Now, we still have some more work to do. That's why we're doing this podcast.
But
That's why we're
that's for sure.
interviewing, talking to people like you. And obviously, we have more cookies for you to be making. So maybe as we kind of wrap up this interview, I want to maybe give people some inspiration. I want to maybe have you kind of share what you do and how you keep going through everything you have to do. Because, like I said, you have a lot of competition. There's a lot of people in the market, vegan and non-vegan. You know what I mean? There's a lot
Well,
of confusion with labels and so forth. Like, how do you kind of, as they say, like keep your head on straight with everything that's going on, with everything that's pulling you in multiple directions as you build your business?
well, I'll just in closing, I would like to say, first of all, I don't really think there's competition because I'm the best so far. I just want to get that straight. Second
Okay.
of all, the interesting part about this whole situation is you- truly what has driven me has always been the vegan thing. It's always, I mean, I grasp onto that and have not let go. It has always been
Mhm.
the forefront of my everything that I've ever done. I've had a restaurant, a vegan restaurant for 5 years, and I'll tell you, it's always been the forefront. My passion comes from being vegan, and it's become spiritual too. I mean, I've really grown as a human being. The like I have more of an embodied love type of thing. I'm stronger and wiser. I try to try without offending too many people or my family. I always try to impose my opinions on how they should live, so to speak. I mean, it's a very difficult battle because vegan is a personal choice and a personal opinion. It is very hard for people to say, oh, I can do that too. I just had somebody on Facebook just yesterday just say, I don't think I could ever get my husband to be vegan. And I really wanted to reply, if he wants to be happier and healthier and live it longer, a better quality of life, you got to try it. You have to try it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and say that veganism is what keeps my head above everything. It's the strangest thing, but it's true. It's everything to me. Having this plant-based diet, vegan is everything to me. I hope that
I
answers
love
your
that.
question.
No, that does, that does, that does. Now, we didn't tell people where to get the cookies, how to buy the cookies, how to follow you, how
Don't
to,
follow.
so
I,
let's give them
that's
website,
a
social media, give
well.
them
I
all the
have
goodies.
sunflower baking is sunflour baking.com, and then I just
Okay.
started a new website, startaveganbusiness.com. I just started that about 2 weeks ago because I thought, you know what, I don't need to do that, but I think I want to do that. I want to help other people get started with a vegan business because I have so much in me I want to pour it on. And then
Perfect.
you just whenever you look for me, it's got to be Rey Ortega.
Okay.
I think that's Instagram too. I don't even know what that is. I mean, I don't know my name because I don't really do that stuff. I have it, but I'm not forefront on social media because I'm busy. I got. Oh, you know what? I hate to tell you this. I don't mean to spoil anybody's fun, but I'm also in the cannabis business. I'm in the vegan cannabis business as well. Did I not?
Interesting.
If I forgot, I think I forgot to tell you that.
I think
So
so.
that's
That's a new turn and twist.
I'm probably the only mainly vegan cannabis producer of edibles. I'm still
Hmm.
hemming and hawing about it. Hasn't been a great business, but I spent well over $1 million in getting it made and functional. It's been tough, and I've been considering getting out of it because it's still kind of gray area for everybody and everything. And I don't drink or I don't smoke. I don't do. I'm not into any of those things. But I want people to be healed in some way, some form or another. And I think whatever happens, in the future with people's healing, I don't know if cannabis is going to be a part about it, but we'll see, I guess.
Okay. No, that's interesting. It's so,
Yeah.
I love talking to you because I hope it would inspire some people to realize is that, once you get into this kind of like entrepreneurial bug, it's very easy to become a serial entrepreneur because you start to see
Oh
the
yeah.
paths, the ways, you know what I mean? You
Oh
understand what it takes to run a business, to put a business together.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And even if you never thought you would, you're going to have these many businesses back in 1994, it's
Yeah.
amazing this journey as an entrepreneur, how
Fun.
your interest and everything can kind of spread out. So it's exciting
Oh,
to hear
it's a
about what
it's
you're
a
working on too.
it could be both a curse and a blessing at the same time. So just
That's
so you
true.
know,
That's what
for
everything
somebody
is.
like
Yeah,
myself. Yeah. Yeah. So
absolutely, absolutely. One other thing is, where can people get the cookies? What stores are you in? If you want to
well,
share,
you know
or
what?
if you're ready, if it's super
Sadly,
secret, I don't want to.
well,
You
no,
know.
it's not secret.
Okay.
What
Okay.
happens is, I can only you can only get mainly my Sunflower Baking Company cookies online. That's
Okay.
mainly where I have thousands of accounts. I just don't know where they are because I have
Okay.
distribution, and I don't. They're in colleges, universities, hospitals, institutions. They are everywhere, but I can't. I do
Perfect.
not know exactly where they all are. I mean, I wish I did know more. Locally, they're in. I have my Sacramento is pretty much kind of covered, for the most part.
Mhm.
But Mishy's cookies, which I just acquired that a vegan line about 2 years ago, is in Ralph's and SoCal. They're in most all the Ralphs, and I'm actually extending the line to add a bunch of new vegan cookies onto that line. Mishy's, Michys. It's a great
Okay.
line. They're in Ralph's, but for the most part, everything else is online.
Perfect. If people want to go online, where do you recommend they go? Just wherever they normally shop.
Sunflower baking. Yeah,
Okay.
I used to be on Amazon. I stopped that too. I've just been I know I get so. I need to be managed sometimes, and I have a manager, so to speak, who manages me,
Hmm.
but I don't really
Hmm.
do what she says all the time. But for the most part, sunflowerbaking.com, spelled like the baking flour, FLOUR, for those who don't know me. Baking
Perfect.
sunflower baking. That's about it. Mhm.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I really hope our guests today not only enjoyed our session, I really love talking to you. It's kind of fun to kind of talk back and forth and hear your story.
It is. Oh gosh, you're pretty good. I'm surprised. I've done some of these types of things before, but you're great. You know why you're great? Because you laugh at my jokes. That's why. And I
Ah,
need people to laugh
you
at
are
my jokes.
actually you are actually funny. So I really, really enjoyed it. I'm glad we had a chance
Thank you, Stephanie.
to
Thank you.
absolutely to run through everything. And I really hope that our guests reach out not only to learn more about your story, but also to grab some of those cookies. Because I think the key here
Yeah,
as entrepreneurs, as we try to take this movement forward, we also have to support each other. So I think it's really
yes.
important for us to do that work. And I'm really glad we had
Yes.
a chance to chat with you today.
Thank you. And I encourage someone to try to do better. Try to do better than me. Try to reach for the stars. You know what I mean? And just do great. Vegan, 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 vegan.
Love
That's
it.
it.
Vegan, vegan, vegan. That is the
Vegan,
message.
vegan, vegan.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Ray, for your
Thank you,
time.
Stephanie.
And also, thank you for everyone who joined us live. If you happen to watch this live, whether you're watching this as a replay or if you're listening to this as a part of our podcast, we always love feedback. We always love to hear what you think. And we also hope that today was a little bit of inspiration for you and also helping you hone in on the things that you want to do. And remember what Ray said, success is bigger than everything. So nothing held him back. So I hope today
Yeah.
nothing holds you back as you move forward after listening to this podcast or watching this recording. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Stephanie.